Alright, hi, this is Denny Saunders. I'm working on my final project, one of the required items of my project. Sitting here in my wife's craft room, which incidentally is where this all started when I did my first video. But there are a few things about recording that I was asked to address. The first one is what microphones would be best for recording a live choir or other ensemble. In my research, basically two stereo mics, small diaphragm condenser mics were what were suggested for a choir, and I'm going to assume that would work well for an orchestra and probably a band as well, although bands are typically a lot louder. But those were the two main mics that were recommended then. Also, it suggested if you have soloists or instrumental accompaniment or other things that you can add additional spot mics to pick those up specifically, and then they can become part of the mix and better heard on the mix. And of course that really depends what type of mics used there. I didn't really find specifics on that, but I'm going to assume it depends on what type of soloists or instruments you're trying to pick up. For example, if you have vocal soloists, a large diaphragm condenser mic would probably be preferable for that, I'm assuming, or if you have lower instruments, bass instruments, a bass mic. As far as overall quality, what you buy really depends on what you're able to afford. There's certainly a lot of range in quality as to what you can get, and that will determine how great your recording turns out, and as you pointed out in the materials you provided. It says compare at least 3 different types of microphones. Again, in my research, really the two main categories that I came up with are the condenser and the dynamic mics, and that about 95% of all mics will fall into those two categories. Condenser mics, they're better for higher frequency. They do require phantom power, makes them active mics. They are more fragile. They do cost a lot more. They can get well into the thousands, but they are better for instruments such as acoustic guitar, cymbals, piano, or any instruments I would assume in a concert band, like your violins, your upper instruments like your flutes and your trumpets, things like that. They fall into 2 categories. There's a large diaphragm condenser mic, a standard mic for use for vocal recording, and then your small diaphragm condenser mics, good for instruments, rich in high frequency detail. And again, those are the ones that I noticed were recommended for at least recording choirs. In addition to that, a couple of the mics, there's ribbon mics. They're neither condenser nor dynamic. They have aluminum ribbon to capture sound. They're very durable, like dynamic mics. They have high frequency sensitivity like a condenser. They use a standard figure 8 polar pattern. Very high cost. I didn't really find what they're most commonly used for. I know you mentioned in your materials that they're not usually used for recording ensembles or that type of recording setup. In addition to that, another mic that stood out was the bass mic, used again for things like a kick drum on a drum set, or other bass or low instruments. I know in our Army band we use that quite frequently with our drum set. So discuss mic setup for a choir. Again, one of the things that stood out, one of the things I read was the 3-foot rule, and that is basically have the instrument at least about 3 feet from the front row and about at least 3 feet from the tallest person. There's 2 different ways that your condenser mics can be set up. There's the spaced option where they're spread out, or the XY option where they're kind of in a cross pattern, but closer together. Was suggested how you set up your choir orchestra, perhaps a semicircle, so you're trying to, the idea is to get the most even sound from all the singers, so you're not getting some more than others, to get more balanced sound. and of course, again, as you pointed out in your materials, and was also emphasized in a lot of my readings, to really listen, go and really find where the best sound is based on the environment or the facility you are in. And so a lot of listening and sound checking to determine the best setup to get the best mix of sound, and that would take a lot of time to get a feel for that wherever you happen to be. And also need, when setting up determination, again, if there's spot mics, if there's specific instruments or vocal solos you need to want to highlight. As far as a budget is concerned, oh, I had a paper that I wrote out. Just in my things that you would need to just for a standard recording setup, just assuming I was doing this for my own school, which I would like to do. We'll start with the microphones itself to get 2 stereo condenser mics. I have here the Shure SM81, and those will be about $350 a piece. Additionally, you need some stands, and those I notice range quite a wide range. Some microphone boom stands that would probably be between $50 and $100 each, depending on what I acquire. So I'm going to say $200 there on the high end. An audio interface. One I looked up, the Focusrite Scarlett 2i4. That's $200, and of course you would need cables if they didn't come with the microphones already, which they might, but you're looking at probably another $50 to $100 there, depending on the quality of cables you get. Of course you need a digital audio workstation software. Pro Tools being quite pricey, $600 to buy it outright. I would probably look at something more like the Logic Pro X. I haven't used it because they didn't have a trial version, but it was the second highest rated, at least in one survey I looked at, and it's only $200, so certainly more economical. Additionally, it's recommended to have some quality headphones to be able to listen, so you can really hear and get a good mix and sound check when you're recording. And then, of course, there's the computer, but I wouldn't factor that in because, at least in my job, I have one issued to me anyway, so I don't see any reason to factor that in. But overall, you're looking at a price of about $1,500 to just get a pretty basic recording setup to do a decent quality recording of choir, orchestra, or band in my case. Anyways, I think I've addressed everything asked for in this video. I'm by no means an expert on it. I learned a lot, and I'm actually anxious to learn quite a bit more on this subject because it is certainly something I want to pursue with my own schools. One thing that was brought up is using a dedicated recording device. I'm going to assume that was referring to like those handheld recording devices. I actually have one at my school. It's an Aerodol. It's about $300. It actually works for in-class recording sometimes so we can hear ourselves. And I've even used it in concerts, and it does okay, but I think I'd like to raise the bar and pursue a higher quality setup for my ensembles moving down the road. And so anyways, I think, again, I've addressed everything you asked for, and I appreciate the course. It's been fun. I've learned a lot, and I've learned that I don't know a lot, and would like to learn a lot more as time goes on. Thank you, and goodbye.